When the Reynolds family relocated from New Jersey to a quiet town near Banff, Alberta, they thought they were starting fresh. Cleaner air, a slower pace, a good place for their kids to grow up. The house they bought stood on Black Cedar Road, an old Victorian two-story with a snow-covered wraparound porch and tall, creaking windows. The real estate agent offered a strangely generous discount, citing some weird history, but nothing concrete. For Emily Reynolds, 17 and introverted, the house felt like a mystery she wanted to solve. But something was off from the very beginning. Her little brother, Jake, refused to sleep in his room. "There's a tall man in the corner," he whispered, eyes wide. Emily checked. Nothing there. That night she heard whispering through the walls. Not English. Something deeper, rhythmic, and ancient. The thermostat was fine. The house was sealed tight. Still, the temperature dropped every night at exactly 3:13 a.m. One rainy Saturday, Emily discovered a sealed door in the basement behind some old paint cans. Her father, Tom Reynolds, pried it open. Inside was a strange room. A dusty old rug scorched around the edges, with symbols carved into the floor and walls. Her mom, Rebecca, squinted at the writing. "Looks Arabic? I think these are religious verses." There were candle remains, cracked prayer beads, and a burnt leather-bound book with pages torn out. Her mom shivered and closed the door. That night, the whispers got louder. They seemed to be calling names. Emily's name. And then she saw the first shadow. It glided across the hallway wall, tall, inky black and fast. Gone before she could scream. But it had looked at her. Emily dove into research. She found an old article about the original owner, a Syrian-born man named Imam Rashid Khalil. He had lived alone and quietly until he was found dead in the basement. No wounds, just a face twisted in terror. Locals said he was a religious man who had performed exorcisms and that he had trapped something inside that house. Emily contacted a spiritual expert online. An exorcist from Detroit named Omar Washington. He told her to read protective prayers aloud in the house for 3 nights. On night 2, the lights died. Her flashlight started flickering. Her laptop screen filled with static. And then, her own voice came from the hallway, repeating the verses backward, in a whisper. Her mother screamed. Jake floated inches above the bed, eyes rolled back. They fled the house, barefoot in the snow, piling into the car without grabbing a single thing. As they drove away, Emily looked back once. There was someone watching from the top window. Her, but with pitch-black eyes. The Reynolds family never returned. The house sits vacant, overgrown and ice-cold even in summer. Neighbors avoid walking past it. Some claim they've heard footsteps echoing in the walls at night, or a girl praying in a language they can't understand. Others swear the door to the basement slams shut by itself, every night at exactly 3:13 a.m., because what the Reynolds didn't know was that the man who lived there before had sealed something ancient inside the house. Not a ghost, not a demon, something older, something patient, something that is still waiting. 1 month later, Emily Reynolds was safe, physically at least. The family had moved into a rental apartment in Calgary, trying to forget. Therapists said she was experiencing hallucinations triggered by trauma. but Jake still refused to speak. Her mum started sleepwalking, and Emily couldn't stop drawing the same thing over and over again. A tree, black, twisted, rooted in snow, with faces hanging from its branches. Her father burned the sketches, but Emily knew it hadn't followed them. It was still there, waiting in that house. 3 weeks later, the Myers family bought the house. Young, adventurous, from Toronto. A couple in their 30s with a golden retriever and a newborn baby. They moved in during a light snowfall. Locals warned them with vague nods and half-joking comments like, "You're brave, living on that street." But they didn't believe in superstitions. On their first night, the baby monitor picked up a lullaby, not from the baby. Not in any language they recognized. Their dog started growling at the attic door. The next day, he was found dead on the porch. No wounds, no blood, just frozen, eyes wide. The family didn't leave. By the third night, the baby stopped crying entirely. It just stared, silent, unblinking. Emily was 16 when she broke into the house. It was just after midnight, during a snowstorm. She'd seen the listing online. The house was still on the market again. The Myers family? Gone. No explanation, no goodbye. Just vanished. Emily snuck through the back fence with a flashlight and a bag of supplies. Holy water, a copy of the Bible and Quran, and a camera. Inside, the air was thick. Heavier than it should have been, like she was underwater. Dust lay untouched, yet the floorboards creaked as if someone was walking just ahead of her. The fireplace was cold, but faint embers glowed red between the stones. The basement door stood wide open. At the bottom, the prayer rug was gone, but the wall carvings were deeper, fresh, dripping. Something hissed in the corner. Emily turned and saw it. 7 feet tall, skin like smoke and ash, its face shifting, always changing until it wore hers. "Welcome back," it said, voice like crackling fire. She screamed and ran, upstairs, through the hallway, toward the front door, but the house twisted around her. Hallways looped, doors led to nowhere. Mirrors showed her walking away even as she stood still. And then, silence. When Emily woke up, it was dawn. She was outside, curled up in the snow, right where she'd first entered the property. The house stood silent again. But something was different. On her wrist was a burned symbol, the same one from the basement wall. It pulsed, faintly warm, like an ember buried under skin. Back in Calgary, her mother gasped when she saw it. Her uncle, a retired imam, visiting from Michigan, turned pale and whispered, "That's a jinn's claim. It's chosen her." Emily didn't sleep for 3 days. She heard the jinn whisper in her dreams. It didn't want her body, not yet. It wanted her to finish the seal, to release the others. The house is empty again, but not silent. Each night, a single window lights up with flickering flame. Each morning, a new name is found, scrawled in the snow outside the door. Always in Arabic. Always written backward. The latest name? Emily. 1 year later. Emily Reynolds hadn't spoken in months. Doctors called it selective mutism. Her mother called it spiritual damage, but Emily knew what it really was. A bargain. She hadn't gone back to the house since that snowy night, but the jinn had come with her, inside her. It didn't need to whisper anymore. It sat in her thoughts like oil in water, never mixing, never leaving. Some nights, it spoke through her hands, scratching symbols into her walls, into her skin, into the floorboards of their apartment. Other nights, she'd wake to find herself standing on the balcony, arms raised to the sky, murmuring in a voice not her own. Emily wasn't fighting anymore. She was waiting. The house had been purchased again, this time by a real estate investor. Plans were drawn to renovate it into a rental cabin for tourists. Fresh paint. New windows. On the day construction began, the head contractor fell from the roof after screaming about a black shape crawling from the chimney. The next night, the house burned. Only it didn't. To the world, it looked charred and destroyed. But Emily saw the truth. The house was rebuilding itself, like a wound healing in reverse. Each scorched board returned to pristine condition. Each brick fell back into place. But now, it was larger, as if something beneath had been fed. On the anniversary of her first escape, Emily returned. Her mother tried to stop her, but it was no use. Emily had stopped being fully human a long time ago. She entered the house just before midnight. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. Inside, the temperature dropped to freezing. Shadows moved like slow tides across the walls. Blood dripped from the ceiling in thin streams, as if the house was weeping. The basement door opened for her. The room below had changed. Now it resembled a shrine. At the center stood the djinn, taller than before, more solid, no longer hiding behind smoke. Its face was a writhing mass of expressions, male, female, beast, child, corpse, but its voice was one. "You are the key." Emily stepped forward. Her hands moved without her will, tracing the final seal into the floor, the one Rashid Khalil had refused to finish decades ago. The djinn bent toward her. "Speak it." Emily opened her mouth and said the final word, a word in a language no longer spoken by any living human. The seal broke. The house didn't shake, it breathed. A low rumble echoed through the foundations as the floor split open like the earth yawning wide. From beneath, a column of fire burst upward, silent and alive, and inside it were dozens of djinn. Trapped, bound, waiting, now free. They spilled out like shadows made of heat and hate, vanishing into the night sky, one by one. Some flew toward the forests, some into the mountains. One flew directly into Emily. Her body lifted off the floor. Her eyes turned pure white, and then she smiled. Not Emily's smile. The house is still there, rebuilt, untouched. For sale. No one remembers what happened to the last owners, or the contractors, or the girl. But if you walk by on a winter night, and the wind's just right, you might hear a girl praying from the basement. Not begging. The djinn are free now, and their host lives among us, smiling, waiting, because the seal is broken, and the world has no idea what's coming.